Is the Statue of Liberty still a beacon for freedom? Right now on Carpe Diem. Hello and welcome to Carpe Diem. I'm Mark Effron, a professor of journalism and television and digital media here at Montclair State. More than 1 million people come to our country every year, but now it's an uncertain time for those who see the United States as a better way of life for them and their families, a way out of fear or poverty, a way towards a better education and improved job prospects. But the Trump administration's thus far unsuccessful attempts to severely restrict immigration from certain countries has produced an uneasy climate for many people who both live here or want to come here. On today's Carpe Diem, we're going to be looking at how this present environment affects universities like Montclair State. We'll be talking shortly with Elizabeth Gill, who is Director of International Services here at the university, about her take on the situation. But first, meet Esper, a recent MSU graduate who came to the United States to escape his war-ridden country, Syria.
I remember I didn't wake up to school for some reason. I don't know, I just didn't wake up. And they start literally shooting everywhere. My name is Esper Abaji. I'm 26 years old and I came to the United States in July 2012. I grew up in Aleppo. When I finished my high school, I went to dental school over there. Finished 3 years dental school, then the war started. That day, I remember I didn't wake up to school for some reason. I don't know, I just didn't wake up. So on that day, I called my friend. I remember like, hey, what did you guys take? He starts screaming on the phone, and he was like, don't ever get near the school. I was like, oh my God, what's going on? So a minivan, a white minivan, came to the school with people who are acting like they're working for the government. I don't know if they do or not, I'm not sure. They call them shabiha, whatever. And those people came in, they're asking for specific people. So they went into the cafeteria and they start literally shooting everywhere. Breaking everything, shooting, and whoever they see the person they need, or they ask for people, if they see them, they take them and they throw them in the van. It's like crazy. It's like a movie. It's literally like a movie. So they started as a civil war at the beginning, and they started protest against the government, against the president, and that started actually in 2011. And that's where I was like, all right, so I have a visa, let me come here. We were visiting anyway. So we started to visit, we came here. I just came with my brother and my mother. We were visiting my grandparents and just to see what's gonna happen, maybe stuff will get better, you know? And I can go back and finish dental school. I don't have to stay here. I came here, stuff were getting worse. Every month is even worse than the other. So I was like, all right, that's it.
With the help of the Office of International Services, Esper completed his undergraduate studies at Montclair State University before attending New York University Dental School.
Dental school is completely a lot different from over there. Even though I was studying in, I would say, American curriculum, it's American English mixed curriculum, I would say. Studying-wise, let's say, right now at NYU, I have one of my courses that I'm taking, Crown and Bridges. It's exactly the same book that we used to learn over there. I really still think that I'm an immigrant. I will always think that, I think, always. It's harder. It's just harder. And I don't know if I would feel better about it later when I get my citizenship somehow. I don't know. What makes me mad is a lot of people here with papers, with a lot of opportunity, and they do nothing, even though you have the ability to. People are high school dropout and, oh, I don't want to go to school today, and I don't know what. And 10 years later, they're like, oh my God, what did I do? And over there, you don't have that ability. You would never achieve whatever you want in Syria, ever. No matter what, how hard you work. And that what makes me mad. Then they came up on protest, wasting their time here, and they're saying, oh, immigrants are taking our jobs. Sorry, you're not working. What are you doing right now?
We're joined now by Elizabeth Gill, Director of International Services here at Montclair State University. Elizabeth works in the Office of International Engagement, which serves as an international resource for the campus and the community. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
So that story, that's one student's story. What do you see in your office? Do you see a lot of those kinds of stories? Does everybody have a different story?
Yeah. I think that the stories vary greatly. I mean, we have students from about 90 different countries in the U.S., graduate students, undergraduate students, students who are very well off socioeconomically, students who come from poorer families. So it varies a lot.
So tell us about the office. It sounds like you have an interesting job here at Montclair State.
Yeah, I think we have a very exciting office to work in. International engagement is in charge of all sorts of global initiatives for the university. So we handle study abroad, students who are going overseas, who are going to study in another country at a different university, students who are coming here, scholars for the university, various kinds of exchanges and partnerships with institutions and universities overseas. And my area of the office is the immigration portion, largely, in addition to cultural adjustment programs and things like that. But we have some major new initiatives as well. We recently had a Leaders of the World conference where we had former president of Ecuador on campus, in addition to the ambassador to the UN from the Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire. And we've recently taken on international student admissions. So there's a lot going on for sure.
So of all these different parts of your job, what's the most challenging?
I think immigration, for me, is the most challenging because it's a thing that you constantly have to keep up with. So the regulations that we deal with don't change very much, but policies and the way those regulations are interpreted are constantly changing. And so there's a whole lot of, you need to be on your toes. You know, there's a whole lot of research and digging around for information to make sure that what we're providing to students and scholars and employees is the most up-to-date information available.
I'm curious, how did you get interested in this?
Well, I can't say that I always envisioned being in this field. My background is in English literature, and I started out...
Well, of course, English literature. That's just where I imagine you'd end up, right?
That's great. Well, I do think there are a lot of English majors in the field.
Yeah.
But, you know, I started out teaching English as a second language to international students, and just kind of moved closer and closer to the international service side of things, and eventually ended up in positions that now are very largely immigration advising and processing positions, in addition to, like I said before, cultural adjustment kind of things. So everything from new student orientation when students first arrive in the U.S. to helping students go find opportunities off campus, like being able to do Thanksgiving Day with a U.S. family. So there are a lot of different things. But, you know, I think if I were to look back in time, it's not surprising that I ended up in this field. I first went overseas when I was 15 years old, always had a lot of friends from other countries, and so it makes sense.
So I'm intrigued by this Thanksgiving program.
Okay.
You've mentioned a lot of things. We're going to talk about all of them, Elizabeth.
Right.
But so, for example, somebody will come to your, I remember when I was in high school, we had an exchange student staying with us, and he went to my high school football game. There was a traditional rivalry. This was in Connecticut. And then he went to our Thanksgiving dinner, and it was the most like, it was like on a Disney World for us. He could, you know, it was such an American experience.
Yeah.
Tell us, how does that work?
Well, we have this excellent partnership with an organization called One to World. One to World is a nonprofit organization out of Manhattan that does a lot of work with international students and scholars. They're the main provider for Fulbright programs, or Fulbright intercultural programs in this area. And so a lot of the times we work with One to World to find a U.S. family that would like to have one of our students come. And usually they have many students who come to their house at the same time. And they will focus on a particular city like Lancaster, Pennsylvania, somewhere in Connecticut, like you mentioned, different cities in upstate, not way upstate, but outside of New York City,
Right.
that are kind of more traditional, if that word is appropriate. So your house with a yard and your white picket fence kind of America, and have the students over to their house to have Thanksgiving dinner, and then sometimes they'll go on excursions as well. So
I wonder if there's ever like a family fight. You know,
yeah,
'cause,
I'd love to know.
It's one of those, like the big holidays, you get the whole family.
Right.
Even when it's a big loving family, there's always going to be an argument
Yeah.
between Uncle George and, Aunt Sally. I wonder if they ever come back and go, oh, that really was American.
Yeah. We've also worked with families in the Montclair area who were just interested in having some international students come over. So yeah, that's a very good question. I have no idea what the dynamics are like. Probably very lively, very interesting, and very good picture for students of what life in the U.S. might be like.
So give us a sense here at Montclair State University. We're not looking for numbers, but how many different, are there students here from different regions of the world? Mm-hmm. Is there one region more than others?
Right.
I know that, this is a sensitive time, especially with what's happening
Right.
with even the whole idea of immigration in the country. But I'm just trying to get an idea of how international our student population is here at Montclair State.
Well, like I said, we have students from about 90 different countries. I think if you were talking about areas where we get the most students, we have a lot of students from East Asia and from India. So from China, South Korea, and India. And that's very common, like overall in the U.S. With international students. And then we have a number of students from Saudi Arabia as well, because Saudi Arabian government offers a full scholarship through the Saudi Arabian Cultural Mission. So that means that they pay the students' tuition, fees, living expenses, insurance, everything that they'll need while they're in the U.S. So that encourages Saudi students to come as well. But then we have a number of students from Africa, a number of students from South America, some students from Europe, especially students who are in exchange programs.
Right.
Would be coming from Europe a lot of the time. And of course we have a relationship with University of Graz, and so we get
Right.
students from there. So just many different places.
So, obviously when you're going through your undergraduate student life, it's a time of great change for most students, and there are stresses and strains from school, work, and outside work.
Right.
I would imagine that being a student from another country takes all that and then adds another layer on it.
Yes.
How does your office help students who might find that they're having some concerns or issues, whether it's in acculturation or language? Does your office get involved with stuff like that?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
We have our own homegrown programs. So for instance, we have a program called Conversation Beyond Borders that students can come to once a week to talk about their experience in the U.S., to meet domestic students and just share experiences and try to work through different issues and questions that they have. But in addition to that, our office really acts as a hub. So we want to have at our fingertips the resources around the campus that we can connect students to, because obviously we can't do
Right.
everything.
Right.
So for instance, counseling and psychological services, or CAPS, offers a lot of really great programs, even some that are geared especially toward international students. So they have a weekly program called Connecting Across Cultures that they offer. They also have, walk-in counseling sessions, which I think is very helpful for some of our students where in their home country there's a real stigma attached to dealing with mental issues.
Right.
And so that can be very helpful if it doesn't feel quite so formal. We start with orientation and try to give the students a really firm foundation to work with, so that they know that various resources are available. Even if we can't go into great depth on all of them, we can give them the tools that they need to succeed.
So what's Montclair State reputation among these foreign students? Do they go back and say, oh my gosh, this was, this was an amazing experience, or this was an amazing experience, but? I mean, what kind of feedback do you get from them?
Yeah, I think that we get very good feedback.
Right.
I've been contacted by several alumni who said, I'd really like to come and share my experience with your new students, so that I can show them kind of what's possible, going from student to career, what I was able to do with a Montclair State University degree. So I think the experience is very good.
Do you personally debrief them during the program, but debrief them before they return to their home country to get a sense?
Well, we're working all along with them. And the thing about the majority of international students are eligible for work authorization after graduation. I mean, they can use some of it before, but a lot of the students use their work authorization afterward. So just because they've graduated, that doesn't end our relationship with them. We're continuing to work with them as they're working in the U.S. as well. So sometimes it feels like that relationship is very long and ongoing.
Right. So of all the students who pass through your office in the course of a week, since you've been here at Montclair State, which I think you said was 2 years?
This is my second
year.
Yeah.
What are some of the more interesting ones? Are there some people who came through who you said, man, that's a different kind of background, and that enriches our student body,
right,
because this person comes from either a very different kind of religious community or background. Give us some stories about some of the more unforgettable characters you've met since you've been here from the students.
Well, I think one of the most interesting things to watch on the campus is the global living community, which is a housing situation in the village where international students and domestic students live together. And we have students from so many different countries represented just in that very small space within the dorms, and students will get together and share with each other, and we do all kinds of different things with them, like have a covered dish, and a student will talk about their culture. But I've also seen students stand up and say, this has just really been a powerful experience for me. I think that we have all different kinds of stories that we could possibly share.
Tell us a couple of stories. I want to hear specifics about
Sure,
it.
yeah. So I think, unfortunately, sometimes the stories that stick in your mind the most are the hardest stories.
Okay.
So we've had students who've struggled with paying their bills, and financial situations, and we've worked with the student to try to find other resources on and off campus so that they could stay in the U.S. And some of those stories have happy endings, and some of those stories are kind of longer term, where you're helping the person not just plan for now, but plan for many years into the future. So yeah.
Was there one student who sticks out in your mind because he or she, got involved with Montclair in a way that was unexpected?
Yeah.
Ran for a student office, anything like that, where it was like, wow, this was even better than I thought when we admitted the student here.
Right. Well, the students I remember the most, honestly, are the ones who come and work for our office.
Okay.
So, for instance, right now we have 2 international student workers in our office, and one of them has a pretty fantastic story of having, raised her brother largely because one parent was missing in her life for quite a while, and so her parents were separated, and at a very young age, she went to work and had a lot to do with raising her brother, and then came to the U.S. To pursue graduate education. And is currently in graduate school and working for our office. And we're just really impressed by her determination, just that she has so many skills and has stuck with it for so long.
That's great.
So,
what about what the students study? Can you generalize? For example, are they more business than School of Communication and Media, or where are they generally interested in studying?
Yeah.
Which of our many schools?
well, I think we have a lot of students in the STEM fields,
Okay.
Particularly in computer science and the biological sciences at Montclair State, but we also have a lot of business majors. And within the business school, the most international students are in the MBA program.
Okay.
We also have a good number of students in psychology and in nutrition and food science. So, they vary, but those are the majors that they kind of gravitate toward the most.
Yes, great. Because I asked it because in our school, School of Communication and Media, I haven't come across too many, foreign students, and I think it would probably enrich our program
Right.
if we had some more of that, especially with the state of media being in kind of ferment, and people questioning what the future is,
Yeah.
as print media has certainly declined.
Well, come talk to our office. I'm
I'd
sure
love
we can come up
I'd
with
love
something.
to. Okay. I want to ask you about F1 and H1B visas.
Okay.
I know they're in the news a lot, but I don't know a lot about it. So can you
Right.
explain to us why they've been in the news,
Right.
why it's important, and how that affects your office?
Yeah. Well, the F1 is a student visa. It's the most common student visa in the U.S. And there are over 1 million international students in the U.S. Right now, and they contribute $32.8 billion to the U.S. economy. So I think that they're always going to be in the news in some way because it's such a huge population of people. Right now, I think the main reason that we've seen the F1 visa in the news pertains to work authorization, because like I said before, F1 students are eligible to apply for anywhere from 12 months to 36 months of work authorization so that they can get experience in their major field of study. And so because jobs and work have been hot political topics recently, particularly as they pertain to international people in the U.S., that's going to escalate it into the news. So once an F1 student is finished with that work authorization, then they might end up transferring their status to an H-1B work visa. So that's what the H-1B is. And there are a limited number of H-1Bs available per year.
Right.
To international employees. And so there's a lot of competition, there's a lottery for that, and there's a lot of debate in the U.S. about whether there ought to be more H-1Bs, fewer H-1Bs, whether the eligibility requirements should be stricter or easier. And so I think those are really hot political topics, and that causes them to be at the forefront of everybody's thinking.
So how do you stay on top of all that? Do you every day you have a forward Google search on F1 and H1B visas? 'Cause
Yeah.
I imagine, because it's so much, every day there's
Yeah.
stories about communities either trying to get in, being told they're not going to be able to get in. I would imagine that would make your job more difficult because it's a moving target.
Yeah, it does. It makes it very difficult. We have some really good professional networks that we work with. The main one is NAFSA, the Association of International Educators. And NAFSA does a really great job of keeping up with a lot of the issues. But we also have, constant emails that we receive from different government entities, like the Student Exchange Visitor Program, which is a branch of the Department of Homeland Security, from the Department of State. So we do a lot of reading of various policies that come out from the government branches. And also we get together with other colleagues in the field from other international offices, and that helps a lot because we can share stories, figure out what's going on, what's common, not so common, and it assists everyone in advising their students and their scholars and employees better.
So finally, what do these international students think of New Jersey?
I think that it depends where they come from. A lot of our students, like I said, are coming from places that have a lot warmer climates. So firstly, they say that it's very cold. But I think that for the most part, what they like about it is that it's there's so many opportunities. New York's right across the river. There are so many different companies that they could connect with for work experience. There are so many different just extracurricular things that they can do in the area. And what they like about Montclair State is that it has this very homey feel to it. So there are trees on the campus. It's a quiet kind of area. So
inside this
in the midst,
raucous metro area of New York City.
In the midst of all of that energy and activity, there's this place that you can call home that's very comfortable.
So that's an interesting feel. Do any of them, how much do our students benefit from having these students?
Greatly, I would think. We have a large portion of Montclair State University students that are from this area. Right. So even though we have a lot of diversity in this area, there's a difference between diversity amongst people who grew up in the U.S. and the diversity that's brought through other cultures and people from other countries. And so having conversations with someone who's speaking English as their second language, or someone who's trying to adjust to life in the U.S., it can give you an element of that experience you would get studying abroad that we talked about earlier.
This was great.
All right,
it was
great.
So much.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure having you.
You too.
And thank you for being with us on this episode of Carpe Diem. If you would like more information on today's broadcast or any of our other episodes, you can write to us at the email address right now on your screen, carpediem@mail.montclair.edu, or call us at 973-655-5158. I'm supposed to say operators are standing by. No. For all of us at Carpe Diem, I'm Mark Effron.